He was barely holding onto the edge of his porch when the cold metal pressed into his back. "You're trespassing," the woman hissed, pointing her phone at him like it was a weapon. "You're not even supposed to be here. This neighborhood has standards." I turned slightly, the white cane in my hand tapping the steps beneath me. "This is my home," I said calmly, my voice steady despite the chill in the air. "Bought it 4 years ago after my last deployment." But Karen wasn't interested in truth. She was interested in power. And today, that meant waving around a laminated piece of paper she printed at home and calling herself president of the HOA, even though no such association existed. "You're lying. I know all the homeowners here," she barked. "And no blind vet bought this place. You're squatting." I didn't say a word, just let her rage build. Sometimes, silence is the loudest thing you can give someone like her. It burns more than arguing. She stormed off, but not before tapping something on her phone and saying, "You're about to be evicted, loser." 5 minutes later, a black SUV rolled up. No lights, no markings, just 2 bulky guys in fake-looking uniforms and sunglasses, even though the sky was gray and full of snow. "Let's go, sir," one of them growled, grabbing my arm without warning. I held onto the porch post, but the other one twisted my wrist behind my back. "I'm blind," I said. "You can't just—" "You're trespassing on HOA property," one of them interrupted. "You're coming with us." Before I could protest, they dragged me off the porch through the backyard, past the frozen creek that separated my lot from the golf course. And then, the ice cracked. One shove. No warning, just cold, sharp, paralyzing. They dumped me like trash in the middle of that icy lake, and as the freezing water swallowed me whole, I heard her voice echo across the snow. "That'll teach him what happens when you lie to the HOA." She had no idea who was watching from the woods, and she definitely didn't know who trained me. Darkness. Cold like knives against my skin. My limbs screamed as the shock of the icy water took hold. I tried to push upward, but I couldn't tell which way was up. My cane had slipped from my hand. My boots felt like they were filled with cement, but muscle memory kicked in. I reached for my belt. The emergency strap was still there. The one I carried not because I expected danger, but because I'd lived through worse. Just before my fingers went numb, I yanked the tab. A sharp click, a hiss of air. The small CO2 cartridge inside my vest activated, inflating just enough to pull me up. I broke the surface, gasping, but I wasn't alone. Footsteps, crunching fast on snow. Branches breaking, voices, low, urgent. Target in the water. "Is that him?" "No visual. Wait, I see him." I thought they were the same guys coming back to finish the job. But then a voice boomed across the ice. "Unit 3. Engage. Target is Veteran Bravo 1. My body was failing, slowing, but my brain jolted to life. Bravo 1. That was my call sign for my final op. The Marines knew. That's when I heard the crash. Ice splintering, then exploding outward. Figures in black tactical gear dove straight into the lake. Not towards me, through the ice, like they knew exactly where I'd be. 2 strong arms locked around my shoulders. "Easy, Sergeant, we've got you," the man said. "Karen picked the wrong vet to mess with." And just before I blacked out, I heard the most satisfying thing I could imagine. Her little HOA just made a federal mistake. I woke up to warmth. Not sunlight. Heat. Controlled. Clean. A quiet hum surrounded me, and I could feel soft fabric under my fingers. I wasn't in a hospital, but somewhere safe. My face was wrapped in a thermal towel, and someone had tucked heated packs around my feet. A deep voice spoke from the corner of the room. "You're lucky. Another 30 seconds under and your heart might have stopped." I sat up slowly. "Where am I?" "Marine Safe House. Local chapter. We've been monitoring that neighborhood for weeks. Didn't think we'd be pulling one of our own out of a frozen lake, though." My throat burned. "Karen?" The man stepped forward, built like a fridge, with the calm presence of someone who'd seen too much and didn't flinch anymore. He tossed me a bottle of water. She didn't just call fake HOA cops, he said. She's been running a scam. What kind of scam? She prints fake violation notices, bullies veterans and immigrants out of their homes, then offers to buy the property cheap through her fake association. Sells it high to developers. I clenched my fists. She wanted me out. He nodded. You're not the first, but you might be the last. He handed me a tablet. On the screen, security footage. Clear as day. Karen directing 2 fake cops, pointing at my house, laughing after I was dragged away. But it was what came next that made my jaw clench. She walked up to my door and spray-painted "Not Welcome" in bright red letters across my porch. Don't worry, the man said. We've got all we need. I looked up at him. What now? He grinned. Now we give her exactly what she deserves, in front of every neighbor she's ever lied to. It was 2 days later when I returned. Not quietly, not cautiously. I came back with a convoy. 3 black SUVs rolled into the neighborhood just as the morning dog walkers and joggers filled the sidewalks. The same neighbors who used to look away when Karen barked orders now stood still, watching. I stepped out slowly, cane in one hand and a legal envelope in the other. Karen was already on her porch, wearing a bright pink tracksuit like armor, lips pursed, sunglasses hiding whatever expression she thought might shield her. She stepped forward, flanked by her fake badge-wearing goons, only this time they weren't so smug. You have some nerve showing up here again, she snapped. I already had you removed. Trespassers aren't allowed on HOA grounds. I held up the envelope. This says otherwise. She snatched it, ripped it open, and her face drained of color as she read the bold header at the top. Federal investigation notification. Fraud, impersonation, and harassment charges pending. She looked up, eyes wide. What? What is this? One of the men beside me, Agent Mallory, a real federal officer, stepped forward and flashed his badge. You've been impersonating a legal authority, orchestrating fake evictions, and facilitating property scams, including the attempted murder of a decorated Marine veteran. Karen took a step back, stammering. That's not true. This is my neighborhood. I created the HOA. There is no HOA, Mallory said calmly. You printed your own seals, made your own board. It's all illegal, and it's all on tape. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came. One of her fake enforcers tried to bolt, but 2 more agents grabbed him before he took 2 steps. And then I dropped the real hammer. I had cameras installed under the porch months ago, I said quietly, just loud enough for the gathering crowd. You didn't throw me into that lake in secret. You did it on federal property, and it's all recorded. Audio, video, GPS time-stamped. Karen froze. She looked around. Neighbors were filming now. Whispers rippled through the crowd. She did what? Wait, she attacked a veteran? I knew something was off about her. But I wasn't done. I pointed to the red spray paint still faintly visible on my porch. You vandalized a Marine's home, lied to the community, and now you're going to explain it to a judge. Karen's knees gave out as the cuffs snapped around her wrists. And just like that, the queen of the fake HOA was dethroned, right in front of the people she used to rule. The silence after the cuffs clicked was the loudest sound that neighborhood had ever heard. Karen didn't scream. She didn't fight. She just stood there, frozen, lips trembling, like her brain couldn't catch up to what was happening. The agents led her down the steps as cameras rolled. One neighbor, a retired teacher named Mr. Jenkins, shook his head and muttered. Told her one day she'd mess with the wrong person. I stood still, letting it all sink in. But the best part? The truth wasn't just coming out in front of a few nosy neighbors. It was going national. Agent Mallory looked at me and nodded. We coordinated with the local news. They'll be airing the story tonight. Full exposure. She's being charged with impersonating law enforcement, false eviction attempts, assault, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted murder. Attempted murder? I asked quietly, surprised. He looked me dead in the eye. She knew there was thin ice on that lake. There are text messages. She told one of her fake officers, quote, "Just make sure he doesn't come back up." My jaw clenched. I looked toward the lake, still frozen over, peaceful now. Hard to believe it almost became my grave. Mallory continued. Also, we traced the money. She was flipping homes for profit, using intimidation to force sales. You were next, until the footage came in. Just then another vehicle pulled in, a black pickup truck with an old Marine sticker on the bumper. My brother, Luke. He jumped out before the engine even shut off, boots crunching across the snow. "I got your message," he said, pulling me into a tight hug. "Didn't expect to see you alive." I had help, I smiled. From the Corps, just like old times. He looked around at the crowd. "Looks like you made quite the splash." "Yeah," I said, "but now it's time to clean up." Because justice wasn't just about getting Karen arrested. It was about taking back every inch of dignity she tried to steal, and making sure no one like her ever got to wear fake power again. Later that evening, the entire neighborhood sat still. You could feel it, like the air had changed. For years, Karen's presence hung over this place like a storm cloud. People nodded when she spoke, not because they liked her, but because they were scared. She controlled everything with threats, fake fines, and constant paranoia. But not anymore. The news vans parked at the end of the street. Reporters whispered into cameras. Microphones caught every detail. Footage from the porch camera aired on the evening news. It showed her standing there with her fake cops laughing as they dragged me away. Then, the lake scene. Blurred for viewers, but the sound was enough to chill blood. "She's not coming back from this," Luke said, arms crossed as we stood outside, watching the neighbors gather in the cul-de-sac like it was some sort of town meeting. A woman approached slowly, holding a tray of cookies like a peace offering. I just wanted to say thank you," she said softly. "We all saw what she did, we just didn't think anyone could stop her." I nodded. "You don't stop people like her by yelling louder. You stop them with proof." More neighbors joined, us, one by one. A quiet unity was forming, like the neighborhood was waking up from a long sleep. "Will you stay?" someone asked. I thought about it. I had every reason to leave. Bad memories, the cold, the cracked paint on my porch and the spray-painted slur that still faintly bled through. But then I remembered why I came here in the first place. To finally have peace. A home. Real ownership. And Karen almost stole that from me. Almost. "I'm staying," I said. "But we're going to make some changes." Luke smirked. "You starting a real HOA?" I laughed. "Nah, just neighbors looking out for each other. No dues, no threats, just decency." The crowd chuckled. And for the first time there was no tension in their laughter. And then, just before people started heading back to their homes, a small boy ran up to me with something in his hands. It was my cane. "I found it by the lake," he said. "I think it's yours." I knelt down, took it gently, and ruffled his hair. "Thanks, soldier." He smiled big. "You're a hero, huh?" I paused, then said, "Nah. Just someone who finally stood up." And for once, it actually felt like enough. A week passed. Karen was still in custody, denied bail. Her mugshot had gone viral, plastered across every local and a few national headlines. Fake HOA queen busted after dumping disabled vet in Frozen Lake. But what mattered more than the headlines was what was happening in the neighborhood. People had started talking again, not in whispers, not with eyes over their shoulders. Real conversations. Kids rode their bikes without being told they were too loud. Porch lights stayed on later. And that spray-painted insult on my porch? Gone. One morning I opened my door and found it completely repainted. A fresh coat of soft blue matching the trim. No note, no announcement. Just quiet kindness from people who used to hide behind curtains. Later that day, I got a call. "Mr. Grant," said a firm, polite voice, We just wanted to confirm your attendance. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., courthouse room 204. You'll be testifying as a witness, and I gave a quiet, understood. But it didn't end there. As I hung up, another call came in. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Sergeant Grant, the voice said. A woman this time, confident, official. My name is Agent Reyes. I'm with the Department of Veteran Affairs Oversight Division. We've been reviewing your case. I tensed. What case? The one Karen Whitlock tried to erase. You were denied adaptive assistance for this property after she submitted falsified complaints. Turns out she had connections in the county assessor's office. That ends now. I couldn't speak. We're not only reversing those decisions, we're recommending full compensation for damages, missed payments, and upgrades you were originally denied. You should have had railing, heating grants, and legal protection. Months ago. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Thank you. No, she replied. Thank you. You exposed something far bigger than a fake HOA. You exposed a network, and because of you, others are going to be safe. As the line went silent, I stood in my quiet living room, cane resting against the wall, sunlight coming through the clean window, and thought, she tried to make me feel small. She tried to erase my name. But all she did was make sure it would be heard louder than ever. The courthouse buzzed with quiet tension the next morning. People filled the benches. Neighbors, press, even strangers who had seen the story online and showed up just to watch justice unfold. The courtroom doors swung open behind me as I walked in, every step echoing loud and steady. Cane in hand, shoulders straight. Karen was already seated at the defendant's table, flanked by two lawyers. No pink tracksuit today, just a bland, gray suit and a face that looked like it hadn't slept in a week. She didn't look up, not once. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Then it began. Witness after witness gave their account. Elderly couples who had been fined into moving out. Immigrants who were threatened with fake legal notices. A young mother who had video of Karen yelling at her kids for walking too loud. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand, took the oath, and sat down. The prosecutor started simple. Mr. Grant, could you describe what happened the day of the incident? I nodded slowly. Karen called what she claimed were HOA officers, told them I was a threat to the community. I was standing on my own property. They grabbed me, threw me in a truck, and dumped me in the frozen lake at the edge of the neighborhood. Gasps echoed in the courtroom. And your condition at the time? I'm legally blind. And a Marine Corps veteran. Karen shifted, her hands clenched in her lap. The prosecutor continued. Why do you think she targeted you? I looked directly at her for the first time. Because people like her depend on fear, and when someone doesn't show it, they panic. The defense tried to argue mental stress, confusion, a misunderstanding of power, but it didn't land. Not when every video, every voice message, every fake document was laid out in front of the jury. Then came the final blow. Agent Mallory was called to testify. He listed every charge: fraud, assault, conspiracy, false impersonation, tampering with county documents, attempted murder. And then, like a scene from a movie, he pulled out a copy of a wire transfer, $50,000 from a real estate firm to Karen's private account. For what purpose was this money paid? The prosecutor asked. For the forced acquisition of Mr. Grant's property, Mallory said, after she planned to have him removed. The courtroom fell silent. The judge called a recess. Outside, the press swarmed. I didn't stop. I just walked straight to the sidewalk, where Luke was waiting with 2 coffees in hand. Well? He asked. I took one. It's done. Now it's up to the jury. He handed me a folded slip of paper. What's this? I asked. Letter from one of the neighbors. Found it on your porch. I opened it. Because of you, my kids sleep. peacefully again. You reminded us that standing up is still possible. Thank you for being louder than fear. My throat tightened. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it speaks in quiet letters, in repainted porches, in the eyes of people no longer afraid to live free. And in that moment, I knew. Whether she walks free or not, she's already lost. 2 days later, the verdict came in. I sat in the same courtroom, same wooden bench, same steady grip on my cane, only now the room wasn't buzzing. It was still, tense, like everyone knew the weight of what was about to happen. The jury filed in, 12 faces, unreadable. The foreman stood, cleared his throat, and then, on the charges of impersonating law enforcement, guilty. On the charges of false eviction, guilty. On the charges of attempted murder, guilty. On all remaining counts, guilty. Every word landed like a hammer. Karen didn't cry. She didn't gasp. She just sat there, stiff as stone, like she couldn't believe the world had finally said no. The judge wasted no time. Karen Whitlock, you weaponized fear. You falsified authority. You preyed on your neighbors, and you nearly ended a man's life, all for power and profit. He paused, then added sharply, you didn't just break laws, you broke the spirit of an entire community. And then came the sentence. 20 years. No parole. Not a sound in the room, until a slow clap started from the back. Then another, and another. It wasn't wild or theatrical. It was quiet, but firm. Like a door had finally closed on something that had haunted the neighborhood for too long. Outside the courthouse, the sun was out. Clear blue sky. Luke stood with me on the steps, both of us looking out at the people gathered. Neighbors. Kids, strangers holding signs that said HOA justice, Carnegie Trust real justice, and respect vets, respect homes. A reporter came up. Mr. Grant, do you have any final words for those watching? I thought for a second, then said simply, I didn't survive war to be bullied at home. This land was mine the day I earned it, and no fake paper, fake cop, or fake power was ever going to take that away. She smiled, nodded, and stepped back. And just as I turned to walk away, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, ran up and tugged at my coat. You're the guy who beat the mean lady, right? I smiled. I didn't beat her. I stopped her. She beamed. My dad says you're like Captain America. I laughed. Tell your dad I'm more like the guy who mows his own lawn and just wants to be left alone. And with that, I walked down those courthouse steps, not just a free man, but a man who took back everything that mattered. My name. My land. And the truth. Weeks passed. The snow melted. Lawns turned green again. Life slowly returned to the neighborhood. But it wasn't the same. It was better. There were no more fake notices on doors. No more whispered fears about what Karen would say. Her house had been officially seized by the state, set to be auctioned, the proceeds going to victims of her fraud. The irony. The house she used to control the neighborhood was now going to help rebuild it. One Saturday morning, I was on my porch sipping coffee, listening to the breeze rustle through the trees. Luke had left the day before, heading back to his base, but not before installing a new railing and motion lights for me. Part gift, part marine overkill. Then I heard the knock. It wasn't urgent, just hopeful. I opened the door to find a small group standing there, 5 or 6 neighbors, all with folders and nervous smiles. Sorry to bother you, one of them, a young woman named Clara, said. But we've been talking, a lot, and we're wondering. She hesitated. Another man stepped forward, Mr. Jenkins. Would you consider helping us form something? Not an HOA, nothing official or legal, just a council of neighbors, where we look out for each other, where no one gets silenced again. I looked at the papers in their hands, sketches of ideas, safety watch groups, community gardens, emergency contacts for veterans and seniors. I let them talk. Let them explain how they'd all lived in fear, how it took one person refusing to back down to show them they could speak up too. And when they were done, I just smiled. Yeah, I said. I'll help. We met weekly after that, on lawns, in garages. Eventually, we used the old town hall building that had been empty for years. Kids played while adults made plans. The little girl who called me Captain America brought drawings to every meeting. Her latest one? Me, standing on a rooftop holding a flag with the word home written across it. And that's when it really hit me. This wasn't just about Karen. This was about every voice she tried to silence, every life she tried to scare into submission. Every inch of land she tried to claim with lies. She lost. Because power built on fear will always collapse the moment someone shines a light on it. And sometimes, all it takes is one blind vet with a porch cam and the guts to say, "This land is mine and you don't scare me." Not anymore. Not ever again. A few months later, something unexpected happened. I got a letter in the mail, not from the neighborhood, not from the city. This one had a federal seal. Inside was an invitation. You are hereby invited to Washington, D.C. to be honored at the National Veterans Recognition Ceremony. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Me? I hadn't done anything heroic, not like the stories you hear on TV. I just refused to get pushed around by a woman with too much ego and not enough conscience. But when I arrived, they treated me like a symbol of what standing your ground really meant. The hall was filled with vets from all over the country, medal recipients, heroes, families of the fallen. I almost turned around and left until they called my name, Sergeant Matthew Grant, Marine Corps veteran, defender of community rights and civil liberty. As I walked onto the stage, people stood, not because I was famous, not because I was flashy, but because I represented something every person in that room understood. You don't have to fight overseas to fight for your country. Sometimes you do it right in your driveway. I gave a short speech, no notes, just the truth. I didn't ask for a fight, I just wanted peace, a home. But when someone tried to take that away from me, when someone pretended to be the law, I did what every vet has been trained to do. I stood up. I held the line. And when I stepped down, a general I'd never met shook my hand and said, "You didn't just protect your home. You reminded this country what home really means." On the flight back, I looked out the window as clouds rolled beneath us. Funny thing is, I never set out to be an example, but somehow standing up for my little patch of land set something bigger in motion. And now thousands knew what Karen tried so hard to bury: truth, honor, and the power of saying, no more. Spring arrived in full bloom. The lake, once frozen and nearly my grave, was now calm, rippling gently under the sunlight. Families picnicked by its edge. Kids skipped stones where I'd once been dumped like garbage. The same place that had nearly killed me now felt like part of the healing. I walked there sometimes just to breathe, just to remember. One afternoon I stood by the water, hands in my pockets, when a familiar voice came up behind me. "You really turned this place around, old man." I smiled. Luke. He'd come back on leave, just for a few days, and made it his mission to check every security camera, every bolt on the porch railing, every screw in the fencing. Typical Marine. But this time, he wasn't just visiting. "I put in my transfer," he said, nudging me. "Got assigned closer to home. Thought maybe I could stick around, build something of my own." I looked at him, proud. "You'll do more than that, you'll lead." He chuckled, then pulled something out of his pocket, a small metal nameplate. "Found this in Karen's old house, thought you'd want to see it." It read, "President, HOA, Whitlock Estates." I turned it over, then tossed it into the trash bin nearby without a second thought. Some titles and don't mean anything. We stood there a while longer, watching the sun drop below the trees. Calm, quiet, no sirens, no threats, just home. Before we left, a neighbor waved as she passed holding her daughter's hand. The little girl shouted, "Hi, Mr. Grant. We made cookies again." I grinned. "Save me a few this time." As we turned to head back, Luke asked, "Do you think people will ever forget what she did?" I shook my head. They'll remember, but more importantly, they'll remember what we did, that we didn't run, that we stood our ground. He nodded, and in that final moment I thought, she came with lies, she came with fake power, but we stood with truth. And the thing about truth, it always finds its way home.